Okay, there we are. Welcome everybody to October of San Diego Division's virtual meet that we've been doing each month. Appreciate everybody being here. And we are now recording, so this will be available on YouTube. It's actually available to watch as it happens, but it'll also be available via the link I provided everybody to watch at any time afterwards on our YouTube channel. Today we have, well, before I go into that, let's see, I had some notes for myself. So if the presenter is comfortable with taking questions during the presentation, if you unmute yourself to speak, go ahead and mute yourself afterwards. And if you haven't muted yourself yet at this moment, go ahead and do that. It's pretty quiet though, so that's good. That will help the distractions be low, and though we want people to participate, so just mute after you're done, and it'll be a very pleasant audio experience for us all. And also, we may ask you to type questions in the chat for a Q&A at the beginning of a presentation, so go ahead and do that. Mike will be monitoring our chat during the presentations, and we'll present questions at the end, so we'll let you know as we go. All right, and what else have I got here? So our program today, we have 4 people that volunteered for show and tell. Thank you very much. That's Chris Thompson, Rudy Blah, Kevin Spady, and Pete Steinmetz. Has Pete arrived, Mike?
I'm not sure.
Okay, let me know if you see him, because I have to make him a co-host too. Okay, and so I'll move forward. I'll take care of that in a few minutes. And so, and then our layout tour for today is Stone Canyon Railroad by John Faraka, MMR. He is in Long Island, New York. I was born in Long Island. I lived my first 3 years of my life in Ronkonkoma. John, what division is that?
Sunrise Trail Division.
Sunrise Trail. All right. Okay, and so our layout tour, that's our layout tour, Stone Canyon Railroad. And then our clinic following is called Keep 'em Rolling by Don Fowler, MMR. He's our own San Diego person. He's our former superintendent. So when I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing, I go ask him questions. And he's a great guy, and you'll enjoy his presentation. So with that, why don't we get started? Okay. So Chris Thompson, are you ready?
Yep.
All right, Chris, let me do a little function on Zoom where I spotlight you so that you stay steady as the person who's speaking. So I'm going to do that now, and it's your turn. I'll time for about 5 minutes, and I'll give you a warning if we're getting close to the end.
Okay, great.
You're up.
All right, I'm gonna share my screen. And what I got to share today is a model that I just recently finished building. Full screen, okay, you'll see that. So this is a 1937 40-foot AR box car. The kit was manufactured by Red Caboose specifically for the Monon Railroad Historical Technical Society a few years ago. So this is one of those I've had in my closet for a while. So I pulled that out to build it, and this is all the parts that encompass that. And this is the finished product sitting on my layout. One of the things that I'm really pleased about this, the way it came out, is after I saw the clinic by Pete Steinmetz a few months ago with covering pan pastels and the AK interactive weathering pencils, I decided to try those. And after fooling around a little bit on a couple of swap meet cars, this is my first quote unquote real attempt. So yeah, pan pastels all over the place. Use the weathering pencils on the trucks mainly in this shot, and then also on some of the brake gear, which I'll show in a second. This is the brake end, and so there's weathering pencils used on here, and of course more pan pastels. And on the coupler, There's a couple different techniques he showed. One of them was just kind of the pecking technique to kind of show individual rust spots. So I tried that on there. I like the way that came out. Then this is the underside. One of the things I really like about the powders is it really makes this brake rigging jump out at you. All the details with the attaching hardware and the rivets and everything else really kind of jump out there, and then you can see additional pencil applications on some of the brake shoes and the springs and stuff like that. So yeah, and that's basically it. So just wanted to share that with everybody and see how you liked it.
Thank you, Chris. Very good. Yeah, I like the pan pastels too. I'm a little intimidated with the oil painting and the airbrushing. So very good. Any questions or comments for Chris? Got some thumbs up going, I see.
Great, thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. All right. So up next is Rudy Blah. Rudy, are you ready?
Yeah, we go. Can you hear me?
I've got your audio and we've
All
got you
right.
spotlighted. You're on the spot, man. So are you ready to go?
Ryan, you're constantly asking for people to show and tell. So I thought I'll show and tell the building of my railroad, which is almost being in progress for 5 years almost. So this is my inspiration. I had a room that is rather small, at about 12 by 13 feet. So in order to fit a minimum radius in there, here's the dimensions of my room. I came up with a design that looks like this.
Excuse me, I don't think you've shared your screen yet.
Oh, you have to share the screen. Oh, okay, let me see. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just realized as you're talking.
Oh, okay. Share the screen. Here we go. Here we go. You got it now?
Not yet.
Share. Oh, share it. Click share twice. That's right.
There you go.
There we go.
Now we got it. Thank you.
Now you got it.
Now show us your stuff.
Okay. Well, we start from the beginning. I have a room that looks like this, right? Just under 12 by 14 feet. You need to try to fit something in there. And I came by going through my track plans. I found this, the top one that is my inspiration, with large loops so that the minimum radius is not going to be outrageous. So this is the track plan I came up with. And I decided to use doors for the service to reach the mountain. And here you see the frames for the doors. So it's actually in a couple of old conference tables and some racks that I was able to find. So let me put it on automatic on. So the room was painted blue. I thought it was a good color. It matches nice with the background that eventually will go in. So I bought doors at Home Depot in various widths. And of course, they had to be cut some diagonal. A lot of railroads, they have these round corners. This railroad just has square corners. Everything is square and straight. So here's how it came together. I decided to paint it brown because I read somewhere you put your scenery on there. Oh, this is the little office, that IKEA office table. So painted brown, and then of course, then the scenery, if it goes out of place, it won't show as much. But I eventually, after it was painted brown, I put my foam on there, and it had to be painted brown on there. And this is the piece of cork for the yard that I found at Home Depot also. It was a slightly different size in, let me go back to this, because see, the only problem I had was, you see this here, I had to weigh it down in order to get it to match the roadbed. All right. So that's why this big weight is there. So this tool here, I created that in order for a train to go from a straight line into a corner. I like it to easy to go in there and increasing the radius. So this is a straight piece, transition piece, 28 and 20, 28, 26, 24 inches. So yet you don't have the toy train effect where the train goes on a straight track and suddenly bang goes around the corner. So here is the bridge. I was able to raise this bridge when the foam came in that I have here. That raised the whole thing. This is a staged photo, okay? There's a laser in order to align the tracks. But I found out it's actually easier to put your eyeball as close to the rails as possible, and you see every kink in the rail that needs to be taken out. But it was just, basically it worked, but just like I said, put your eyeball on there. So this is what it looked like after a while, after the track was glued down. I had the different cars out to check for flaws and the radius. I used actually what is it called? The caulk, brown caulking, window caulking that comes in different colors at Home Depot. That's how I glued my tracks down. And then here you see everything is sort of down. This is what it looked like when this is my bridge. That was one piece that I made pretty well. The bridge was actually an old German bridge that was from 40 years ago when I started this hobby, and this is what it looks like. So here, piece of track, you see I have, here's the train coming. You see here the joint bars. I glued those in place wherever it's visible, either here and there. And every 39 foot, there's a joint bar. Here's the track pretty well completed, but I have train running and a CTI control system on my computer where I control my switches. And this is what it looks underneath the table. After all the wiring was complete, here's another shot. Those little bins conceal the solenoids for the switches. I use solenoids for the switches. And then here is some DCC specialties, phase converters to make sure that it goes around and around. And that's basically the end of the show. So that's just wanted to share. It's been 5 years, so it's really amazing how fast time goes.
Thank you, Rudy. Let me see. Am I off mute? I think
Yes.
I am. Okay. All right. Keep hiding my control bar and I don't remember. Okay. Thank you, Rudy. Very cool. It's fun to see the in progress and how it's done. Any comments or questions out there?
Nice clean wiring, Rudy.
Yeah, I noticed that too. That was excellent.
What was that?
Did you make the template you showed?
Yeah, the template I used, like I said, consistently to make sure that the train eases into a certain radius. And at some point you have to stop. My minimum radius, I wanted it to be 27 inches, but it came out to be 24 inches for reasons of moving the track forward and accommodate the railway station and all that. So it's still a tight squeeze. 24 inches is tight. I had to modify several of my passenger cars.
Well, my question is really, how did you make that template? Did you just
Cut it
use
out.
a various radius thing? How did you do that?
I cut it out a piece of board.
And just, I mean,
Yeah, well,
you just got to ease those radiuses, which
Oh.
is a continuous thing.
yeah, a large piece of cardboard with a ruler, and you put it to 28, and you draw a circle. Then you do one for 24, you do one for 26,
Ah,
and then you connect the pieces. They're each about 10 inches long. Each section is 10 inches long, so it goes gradually from straight to a tight turn of 24-inch radius.
okay, thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Rudy. Very good. All right.
That's
fun.
great.
All right. So our next show and tell person up next is Kevin Spady. Kevin, are you LA or Cajon? I can never remember.
LA.
Pardon?
LA.
LA. Okay. So from LA, we have Kevin Spady. Go.
So let me share my screen here. You should be able to see a screen with 2 locomotives on it, hopefully.
Yes, we got it. Looks good.
All right, I just wanted to share a couple builds I did recently. I was talking to Fran Foley on Facebook, and those of you who, some of you may know him, some of you may not. He produces these great little Whitcomb kits, and he was just in the process of starting to really put them into production, and he asked me if I would build one for him because he liked kind of the work that I had done. So I said, sure, I'll build you one. And as a sort of a payment for doing that, he gave me another kit, and so I built 2. And those are the 2 that you see here on the screen. I thought I'd just kind of walk you through. Let's see if this will advance. There we go. So, the kit's a 3D printed kit. It actually comes, this is sort of partially built. The cab and the hood all come in parts and pieces. So this is actually, when you get it, it's actually 6 pieces or 5 pieces, and this is 6 pieces. It's a great little kit. Requires a little cleanup, but really easy to put together. It does require a bit of fabrication. The mechanism is a Bachmann trolley mechanism. So you have to basically find a trolley, tear it up, and then at the end of the day, you end up cutting the end elements off of the chassis. Not a hard task, but it does take a while. I used a razor saw. You can use a hacksaw or anything, but you have to disassemble the whole thing, basically to protect the motor and everything from filings. I covered it all with masking tape in order to protect the motor assembly and the gears and everything. This is kind of a preliminary assembly. You can see little threads of printed material. This is, I usually clean it up as best I can, and then I primer it. And after you primer it, you see all kinds of loose ends and threads and things that need cleanup. So I spend quite a bit of time cleaning it up. It comes with all the handrails and everything, the grill, the motor, the engine assembly, all the parts and pieces that come with the kit. And that's a really bad picture of the motor assembly. It's actually pretty nicely done, and you can see it through the grills on the hood of the locomotive. I use a Tsunami 2 in it with speakers, so it's got sound. It's a TSU 1100. I'm big on wire management, so I really try to keep my wiring composed using shrink tubing. I'm not a master at electrical stuff, so it does take me a while to kind of figure it all out and get it all installed properly, but it's not hard to do. I did install a Keep Alive on this one from Soundtracks, and they're just 3M double stick tape to the cab roof of the locomotive. And this is actually the first paint, the base paint color. It seems really, really bright, but after weathering, it does come down quite a bit. So I hand paint the inside of the cab with green, and then I go back and airbrush everything else. So the frame and the cab and the roof and hood and everything are all airbrushed with the yellow paint. And this is the first build that I did for Fran. And I do a lot of weathering. I like my stuff to have that kind of beat up look to it. The weathering's kind of a 4-step process. You put down the base coat. I go in with a small brush and a light rust tone and paint, the areas that I want to have be that light rust color. And then I go back after that's dried, I go back over it with Bragdon powders, and I wet the powder on the tip of a brush, and I use that to create the dark rust spot. And then after that's dried, I go back with a light rust Bragdon powder and kind of color around that. So you can't see it very well, but there's 3 layers of color here, which pretty reasonably mimic the what happens with rust as it sort of bleeds out under paint. And then I do other things like you'll see some wear on the handrails here. I use just a graphite pencil and rub it on the handrails to show the wear on the rails. This one had a TCS decoder. I'm not a fan of TCS. I'm basically a soundtracks guy. And this has a Sugar Cube speaker in it. A little bit small on this one. I actually upgraded on the one that I did for myself. Put in a larger speaker. The speaker points down and the sound comes out through the chassis of the locomotive. So directionally, it's pretty realistic. But this is one I built for myself for the Yellow Pine Mining Company component of my roster. That's about it. Any questions?
Nice weathering on that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, thanks.
I have a question. What is this HO scale or?
I'm sorry, it's ON30.
Oh, 0130. And then is this a I'm really not familiar with the Whitcomb locomotive. Is this a switcher or what is this?
Yeah, it's basically, I use it sort of as a switcher. It could be used to haul mining cars. I've got a series of Bachmann mining cars that are also kind of painted the yellow color, the Yellow Pine Mining Company. So it could be used to, transport ore back and forth between, say, a mine and a crusher or something like that.
Oh, I see. And then is this what era is this locomotive?
I think this is 50, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to go back and double check that. I don't honestly recall.
Okay.
Early 50s, I think.
Oh, thanks.
Would you get a soundtrack exactly for this diesel engine, or is it something that approximates it?
No, it approximates it. I think, I forget what sound bite I picked. I think it's an Alco sound, but it's a diesel sound. Might have been Baldwin. I take that back. Might have been a Baldwin VO.
Kevin, now I want to see it run.
I'll have to come to a training show, Rudy. Training side.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Very cool.
Sure.
And we're going to move on to our next show and tell person, and that would be Pete Steinmetz. Pete, are you ready? I don't know if Pete is there. All right, maybe we'll check in with him in a couple of minutes. In about 30 minutes, as we'll go ahead and move on to our feature layout tour, Stone Canyon Railroad by John Faraka. Am I saying your last name right, John?
You are saying it correct, Ryan.
Okay, there you are. Okay, so it is yours.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can everybody see the screen at this point?
Yep.
Looks good.
All right, so first I want to thank you for inviting me to your monthly meeting. My name is John Faraka. I live on Long Island in New York, and this is my layout called the Stone Canyon Railroad. It's an HO scale layout, and let's begin. So I'll give you a quick little rundown of the layout. Stone Canyon Railroad is a fully operational freelance single deck layout based in the Western US. The layout was built in various stages between 2004 and 2018 and is 100% finished. The time frame is the 1950s steam diesel transition era. UP and ATSF are the predominant roads. Overall layout size is 28 feet by 39 feet, including hidden staging. The main line is 400-foot double track east and westbound closed loop. There's about 120 feet of hidden staging track as well. Total trackage is over 1,000 feet. All visible track is code 83, hidden staging is code 100. Scenery ranges from small towns to rugged mountains. There's also a 12-foot long city scene complete with full building and street lighting. Over 100 structures populate the layout, including plastic, wood, craftsman, plaster, scratch built, and kit bashed. Control is DCC. I use Digitrack Super Chief duplex radio. Operations include passenger, local freight, coal, and through freight. Switching opportunities include a coal mine, 35 industries, a large freight yard, lumber branch line, and a full-service steam diesel engine shops. The shops include a 130-foot turntable, 12-stall roundhouse, coal, water, sand, cinder pit, and diesel shop. The Stone Canyon Railroad has hosted over 80 operating sessions since 2013 and has participated in every Island Ops weekend since its inception in 2014. Here's an overall plan of the layout. It occupies my basement pretty much fully, fills it out. This plan I drew up in AutoCAD 2D, and I don't have a whole lot of time, so I'm not going to go through too much of the detail because I have about 45 slides to get through. First bunch of photos is just going to be some overall shots of the layout. The layout is fully skirted, light valance, fascia. This is an overall shot of this peninsula here, which is two towns, Flat Rock and Little Fork. Here is an overall view of the town of Red River. This is a shot looking up the Little Fork Flat Rock Peninsula as well. Roundhouse in the foreground. This is the main freight yard called Stone City Yard. Here's a shot looking at the highest point of the layout here, which is where I have a coal mine, and you can see the yard in the background. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to tour the layout with a train, starting from staging. And you'll see in the upper right-hand corner here, I have a little screenshot of the track plan. And this red dot signifies where the train is. So our tour begins with a PFE eastbound train TF20, headed up by UP Big Boy number 4020. Here, the train is leaving the hidden staging yard. The Big Boy is a Broadway Limited model. And again, if anyone has questions, feel free to ask. TF20 leaving staging on the eastbound lead track. The staging yard has 11 tracks and can accommodate up to 200 freight cars. TF20 enters the eastbound main line track heading into the town of Flat Rock. TF20 passing through Flat Rock. The siding on the upper left, on the left, supports 3 industries. So eastbound through this town, you have 3 industries to switch here. And westbound, you'll see there's multiple industries as well. This is Stone City Light and Power, which receives coal and supplies. It's a Walther's kit. This is on the eastbound siding here. This is a Flat Rock Millworks, and this industry receives lumber and ships millwork products. And this is one of my scratch-built structures. This is Super Sweet Feeds. It's a Craftsman kit from JL Innovations. This is also on the same siding. Engel Paper receives pulpwood and chemical tanker cars. Faraka Fuel in the foreground switches fuel tankers and coal hoppers. Engel Paper here is a Walthers kit, and same thing in the front here. These are just a bunch of Walthers fuel kits and some kit bash tanks, and this is a little Craftsman kit. I don't recall the brand on that one. By the way, the setting for my layout is fall. You notice all the fall colors. Little Fork Transload, which is in between the town of Flat Rock and Little Fork here on the turn on the peninsula. This moves goods throughout the layout. It's kind of like a waypoint for goods. There's also an LCL track, or less than carload track, and loading dock on this side of the building. Dwyer Manufacturing, located in Little Fork, ships manufactured metal goods and scrap metal. Another Walthers kit. This was built by one of my operators, Howard Dwyer. That's why I named it off after him. So here the train is heading through the town of Little Fork, and Little Fork Freight, which is this Craftsman kit here, that receives LCL cars. Both the freight house and water tank are Craftsman kits from Laser Art. Another industry in this town is Jackletch Meat and Stockyard. This stockyard here receives cattle and feed. This is Jackletch Meat Packing, which ships meat products to various industries throughout the layout. This is an overall shot of the peninsula here that we just went through. This was completed in 2014. It was not in the original plan. And this area has 13 industries. And what I'm going to do throughout this presentation is I'm going to intersperse photos of the construction of certain areas. So this is an early shot from 2014 when this area was under construction. This peninsula took me about 6 months to complete. It was actually fairly quick because it's all flat, no mountains. So it was a fairly quick build. You can see here, all my curves are super elevated. I used small pieces of styrene spaced about every 2 to 3 inches. So coming out of Little Fork, the next stop here is entering into the Stone City service facility. So here's an overall photo of the Stone City Engine Service Facility. This is a very busy area during op sessions. I have a full-time engine hostler, motive power hostler, that works this area, moving motive power in and out throughout the session. And in the background here, you could see this is what I call Stone City Heights. It's the city scene on my my layout. This scene here was not in the original plan either. A few years into the build, I decided to fill this corner of the city scene. This is all Walther's Modern Roundhouse series, 130-foot turntable, their roundhouse. And here's a shot in 2005 of the same scene under construction. So this whole rear section here was very bare, and I just kind of had a light go off in my head and said, yeah, that would be a great spot for a city scene. And so I had to stop construction of this and spent about a year building that rear scene because it just would have been impossible to do after the foreground was done. Here's a shot of the city scene, one of the shots. Mostly Walther's kits, design preservation, a couple of scratch-built kits in here. And this is all lighted, and all the buildings have lighting, street lighting. Here's another shot looking down the main drag. These first buildings here are downtown deco. These are downtown deco plaster kits. Very, very well done kits. A lot of detail. Okay, so TF20 now is on the Stone City Yard lead coming into Stone City Yard. And here's the train entering the yard. TF20 on one of 2 arrival departure tracks. The yard also has 3 classification tracks and has a capacity for about 45 cars. And in the foreground here, this is a little area I call Dwyerville, which has 3 industries that we also switch during op sessions. Craftsman kits as well. Here's another scene from the yard. This is Stone City Station. It serves both the east and westbound main lines. It's a Walther's City Station kit. And these background buildings are also Walther's. So you can see here in the track plan, the eastbound and westbound main line are serviced by this station. So I can bring in passenger trains from either direction. Makes for some interesting situations during op sessions. And here is the train exiting the yard. TF20 passing the East Tower, exiting Stone City Yard. Another Walther's kit here. And this is the train exiting the yard and coming around to the entrance of the town of Ryan's Corner. All this rock strata in the back here I hand carved from plaster. And the conifer trees are a mix of scratch built and commercial. TF20 passing through Ryan's Corner. This town has 4 of my scratch-built structures and has a total of 5 industries serviced by local freights on 2 sidings. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 kits here that are scratch-built. The 5th building here is also a Walther's kit. So this is a neat little area. It has switching opportunities on both the eastbound and westbound main line. Here's another shot of some of my scratch-built structures. Bob's Mercantile and Brody Manufacturing. These both went towards my structures AP certificate. In the foreground here, I always wanted to model an abandoned track. So this is a hand-laid ties and rail. It's not flex track. And pretty much buried in weeds and dirt. This is what I kind of consider the signature scene of the layout, Stone Canyon. This area is also very busy with this track going through this tunnel here is actually one of the staging leads. This will run about 100 feet under the layout and eventually end up in the staging yard. Here is a bunch of construction photos taken of that Stone Canyon scene. These were taken around 2005. So here you can see this in very, very early stages. Most of my scenery, mountain scenery, starts with cardboard webbing and hot glued together. And over that, I use plaster gauze and then layers of Sculptamold and plaster and rock strata made from molds as well. And as far as coloring, raw sienna is like the primary color, and I use that color throughout the entire layout. I found that using a color that ties in the whole layout kind of makes the whole layout very cohesive. So now we're entering the town of Red River. This river here I poured using Envirotex Light, and then I used a top coat of gloss medium to kind of create the movement in the water. As some of you may know, Envirotex Light cures to a completely flat finish. So if you want to model a river, you need to do a little bit something different on top. Here's the town of Red River. Red River has 3 industries that handle freight: Lane Feed, Stevens Grocery, and the REA building, as well as a downtown district. TF20 crossing Main Street in Red River. I made this road and most of the roads on the layout from 40,000 stick styrene sheet. Cracks and expansion joints were scribed in prior to painting with acrylics and then weathering with pastels. I did a lot of this town using Woodland Scenic Smooth It, which is like a plaster product, but it's time consuming and messy. And since I switched to styrene, I could build roads much, much quicker with pretty much the same effect. Here's a scene looking down through the main line from the edge of the town. This scene is about 11 feet deep, so you get a lot of good depth of field, and it makes for an interesting shot. Here the train's crossing over onto the eastbound main from the westbound main. Here's a series of shots of Red River from pretty much the first few months of the build back in 2004. Here you can see the L-girder benchwork and the backdrop going in first, obviously very difficult to reach otherwise, and just kind of a progression of scenes here. Town going in. Here is the river scene, starting that, and then here's a final scene here, which is how it looks today. This is the most recent addition to the Stone Canyon Railroad. The Beaver Creek Lumber Branch Line was added in 2018. This mill supplies lumber, pulpwood, and railroad ties to various industries on the layout. I scratch built the mill back here because I just couldn't find anything commercially that would fit in the scene. This is the last addition to this layout. I just do not have any more room. And I always planned on putting something here in this section, and it just took about 14 years to figure it out. This area is, I can actually put an operator here during the session and pretty much keep them busy most of the session. There's trains that come in and out of here, picking up various loads, delivering loads. So it definitely added some interest to the op sessions. So here is the train now heading up the 2% grade towards the Rockwell mine. This track runs up back behind the town of Red River. And TF20 exiting Tunnel 3 near Rockwell Mine, and this is the highest point on the layout, about 52 inches or so off the floor at the peak. And here's TF20 passing the Rockwell mine. The mine supplies coal to various industries across the layout. It has 3 tipple tracks and 1 holding track. The mine train swaps 16 empties for 16 loads during op sessions. And another Walther's kit. And here's TF20 exiting tunnel 2 past the mine, and this is pretty much the end of the run. After this, the train will re-enter the staging yard. And here's the last slide. We'll talk a little bit about operations on the layout. The SCRR began monthly operations in 2013 and has hosted over 80 sessions, including all of the yearly Island Ops sessions, beginning in 2014. Island Ops is a yearly invitational that is hosted by our division and one of the local model railroad clubs on here on Long Island. And it's a weekend that we have about 12 layouts participate, and usually we get about 50 operators and they sign up for different layouts, and it's a real fun time. Unfortunately, this year was canceled due to COVID. I also belong to an ops group, CSOG, we call ourselves, Central Suffolk Operations Group. We meet weekly and we operate across 6 layouts in Suffolk County, New York. We use car, card, and waybill system for freight forwarding. And my layout can operate with between 5 and 10 people. I have positions for dispatcher, yardmaster, motive power hostler, local, and through freight crews and passenger operation. We run anywhere between 12 and 16 trains in a 3-hour session. Most trains begin and end their run from staging. Several trains are made up in the Stone City Freight Yard as well. At any given time, there can be up to 3 local freights running along with passenger trains, and operations really did add the finishing touch to my layout. And that is the end of my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Hey, John, this is Rudy. What is the minimum layout on your layout? Minimum radius. The minimum radius.
The minimum mainline radius is 30 inches.
And another thing is the water. I'm really impressed. Could we get you to share that with us exactly how you did that, what materials you used?
Sure. So the only thing I mainly use for water is Envirotex Light. It's a 2-part epoxy. It's a pretty popular product that's used for making water. It's mainly designed for like bar tops and if you want to put a really thick, hard coating on a piece of furniture. So that goes down. Generally, you don't want to pour it deeper than about 1/8 of an inch. And what I do is I add a dye to it. And what I use like an amber colored dye, so it's not just clear. And I believe on the river, I did about 3 pours. And so obviously first you have to glue down all of the rocks and dead trees and things like that. And it has to be completely sealed. If there's even a pinhole, the Envirotex will leak out. I'm sure some of you experienced that. So what I do is the river bottom or any other water body I do is always done with Sculptamold. And then I paint it and do the pours. First glue in the river rocks and whatever features you want, they have to be glued down. And to create the ripple effect, I use gloss medium. And you just kind of brush it on and stipple it into the way you want it, and it dries to a clear gloss. The other thing I added to create the illusion of like foaming water around rocks, I just stipple on some white acrylic paint, and that gives you a real, pretty convincing effect of foaming water.
Hey, John, this is Kevin Spady. When your trains return to the staging yard, do you manually turn them, or do they run through the turntable on the roundhouse? How does that work?
So I have both an eastbound and a westbound lead into the staging yard. So trains can basically go right back to staging. There are some engines that get turned. Actually, I used to have a train that turned from eastbound to westbound, but I did change that. So like I said, some trains terminate in the yard, but most trains will go right back to staging after they do their run, especially through freights. Through freights basically just run the layout without stopping. So that's how we do it. I have a lead for both eastbound and westbound.
Got it. Thank you.
John, Pete Steinmetz here. Hi, how you doing? Thank you for doing this, incidentally. I have a question on, you showed us one shot and it was a long shot. You said it was about 10 feet. Did you use a focus stacking program in that?
In that particular photo, I did not. I grabbed these. I literally have about 5,000 photos of my layout. I documented from day one, from the first piece of bench work that went in. So for this presentation, I kind of just cherry picked through my photos, and I think I do have a photo of that scene using the stacking photo software.
Okay, I was just curious. It looked good.
Yeah, well, in a deep scene like that, you usually do get pretty good depth of field as long as you don't have something really close up in the photo, because
Okay.
The camera wants to focus on something if it's close up. If
Right.
there's nothing close up, it's just going to give you a focus of pretty even focus point.
And you're using a real camera as opposed to like an iPhone, or what are you using?
I have every photo that you've seen in this presentation and on Facebook is all taken with my LG V20 smartphone.
Oh, okay.
Has a really good camera. It could take up to 16 megapixel, pictures.
Wow.
So, and with the stacking software, it really, that's why I really push this stacking software for even if you have an SLR, there's no way you're going to take an extreme close up of an engine and have the 10 feet of in focus. It doesn't exist. So most professional photographers that do this type of photography are using stacking software.
And which stacking software do you recommend?
So the only one I've ever used is called Helicon Focus.
Okay.
It's for a year subscription, it's $30. So for me, it was a no-brainer. It's amazing. The main thing you need to do with using this software is you need to get a tripod and set your camera up, and you do not want to move it, because although the software can adjust if the images are slightly off, if they're grossly off, it won't work. So my camera has a voice command where I can touch the area I want to put in focus on the screen, and then say cheese, and it'll take the shot. So touching the camera is minimal.
So how many shots do you then take on the Helicon to stack?
You can take over 100, but for most of my shots, I'd say the average is about 10 to 12.
Okay. Yeah, I use Helicon Focus too, so I'm kind of asking this question for the benefit of people that aren't familiar with that. It's excellent software.
Yeah, I'm considering writing a clinic on how to use it, because really is a great product for.
Let me know when you finish it. I know where I would use that clinic. Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
Hey, John, I have a question for you.
Shoot.
You said you typically have about 12 to 16 trains during an operating session.
Mhm.
So do you allow people to, do people bring in their own trains and cars, or you use your own? Oh,
No, we each one of us in the group, well, not everyone has a layout. There's about 12 guys that rotate in and out, but all 6 layouts are all different. One guy models modern day Long Island railroading. Another guy models the Southwest. Another guy models the Burlington Northern. So, I mean, we have talked about possibly taking a car or two and rotating it through the layouts, but everybody has their own operating scheme, and you know, that's pretty much how it works.
oh, that's impressive. And then how many operating sessions do you, so it sounds like, so you do.
So it works out. We do every Thursday night, and there's 4 layouts that rotate through the Thursday night session. Then the retired guys, unfortunately, I'm not part of that group yet. The retired guys run on Mondays during the day. And so my layout gets to run monthly. So basically, you know, 12 sessions a year on my layout.
Very nice. Very nice layout tour. Thank you.
To what extent did you plan the operating sessions before you started building?
None. I had no clue about operations up until around 2012 when I built so for me, this hobby is more of an art form. I consider myself an artist. I wanted to create something to fill my artistic needs. So this, you know, checks all those boxes.
You did it very well.
When I built the layout, you know, I just built it because I needed to build something. And when I was about 75% done with the layout, I was starting to get bored. And I was always kind of one of those lone wolf modelers. You know, I built the entire layout solo. And in 2012, I got a cold call from one of the Sunrise Trail board members. I had been a member of the NMRA from 2004, but I never went to any of the meets. And he said, hey, you know, I noticed you're a member, but I've never met you. So I went down to a meet and I met a few guys. And one of the guys, I had known his layout was featured in Model Railroader. So he said, hey, you know, why don't you come down one night? So I came down, and it happened to be during an operating session. And he sticks a throttle in my hand and says, we're down one guy, you're in. And, you know, I knew nothing about operations. And so at that point, I started understanding how it worked. I had all these guys come down to my layout, and they gave me a lot of suggestions, you know, how to make it a little bit more conducive to operating. Luckily, the general plan that I came up with was fairly good. So what operations did is it pushed me to build this entire new peninsula with another 13 industries, and basically pushed me to finish. I think if I never got into operations, I might not have finished it, because like I said, I was getting a little jaded and a little bored. And so the operations kind of brought the layout to life and kind of gave it a purpose. And now, you know, like I said, I've been operating since 2013, and just a great bunch of guys and great friendships. And I've met so many more people in the hobby, and got into the AP program, and, you know, finished that, got my MMR. And now what I enjoy most is sharing. I do a lot of these virtual meets with groups all around the world. And so, you know, it's come kind of full circle now. And now I'm sharing and, you know, sharing my techniques and what I've learned from other guys. And it's just very satisfying at this point.
I got a question about the coal mine.
Sure.
Is that the New River coal mine?
Yes, it is.
I've got to build that in N scale. Good to see it.
Yeah, it's, you know, there's not a whole lot of coal mines out there commercially available. And this is probably by far the most popular one. You see it all the time. And it's highly kit bashable.
Good, because mine's in the ravine.
John, Gene from San Diego.
Hi,
A couple
Gene.
of questions. Are you from the West Coast originally? Because you have UP and ATSF.
No, I'm not. I'm born here. And although I've been to the West Coast many, many times for business and for vacations, I love California. I just love mountain scenery, you know, and I wanted to build something to reflect that. And obviously UP and Santa Fe, you know, run in that territory. And that's pretty much what drove me to pick that area of the country.
Oh, okay, very good. Also, the second question is operations. Is that set up through JMRI?
No, I don't do that. It's pretty much a manual, you know, I don't have signaling. One of the guys in my group is a signals engineer by trade. He designs signal systems for railroads, and he has an incredibly detailed layout, not detailed in scenery, but detailed in operations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He uses JMRI. It's mind-boggling. I can't even begin to explain how he does it, but we run his layout like a real railroad with timetables, and his layout is signaled, and he has screens all over the place that show you where your train is, and it's amazing. But my layout, you would call a dark layout, no signals.
Not from my view. It looks beautiful.
Yes, thank you very much, John. If there's not any last minute questions or comments, I think I'm going to move on to our next event. But thank you so much, John, for taking the time and the effort to do this. And if you look at the chat, you'll see that you pretty much wowed us with your layout. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. So Pete, you're here.
I am. I was actually here before, but I didn't have any of my equipment on. I was rushing around trying to grab LEDs and all that kind of nifty stuff.
Oh, good. Because I thought I might have cut you off. I kind of moved on quickly and I realized, oh, shoot, maybe I cut him off.
I was kind of going like this. And then you said, and now we'll move on and we may get back to him. So anyway.
All right. So it's yours.
So I can, what I'm going to talk about a little bit is doing LEDs for like headlamps, tail lamps for locos. I use a 3mm LED, and I don't have my second camera set up, so you're just gonna have to kind of bear with me a little bit. I use basically 3mm LEDs. I buy them by bulk on eBay. I buy warm white clear, which is kind of important. And then what I do, why they're this color, is I dip them. And I can dip them in many different colors, but the one I really like for headlamps and tail lamps is the Tamiya. And it is, you can get it at Discount Hobby Warehouse in San Diego or pretty much anywhere that military models are sold. This is a clear orange. And I just take an LED and I dip it down in. I turn it right side up so everything doesn't end up on the tip, and I just stick it in a piece of styrofoam. Then when I go to put a resistor on it, the resistor I use is a size 1225. Each one of these has one resistor in it. 1225 is a for me a very easy size to work with. I use a 670 ohm. You can use anywhere from about 470, 450 to about 1,000. It controls your brightness basically, and it also cuts down on the voltage going in. Most LEDs run at about around 3 volts, some a little bit less. But you better protect them because, like for instance, soundtrack decoders, if you don't use a resistor, you will get that about half-second flash of light, and that'll be it. So some of the decoder manufacturers, I believe ESU controls a little bit better, where they put some resistors in the board. Some of the OEM versions of Soundtrack's decoders, they specify resistors. I just got what was it? MP15, and I looked at it because the decoder's bad, and I looked at it, and it didn't need any resistors. There were no resistors anywhere in there. So I'm in the process of rewiring that with a new decoder and resistors. Some guys who don't like to solder these things, and I'll show you what it actually ends up looking like, because I put a little piece of heat shrink over it, but you can see it right there. Just a small resistor, and it goes on one leg of the LED. When you take these LEDs, this actually is color coded for a taillight. Yellow is taillight, white is headlight, and then the blue wire is common. I try to follow that practice, just because if I ever have to go back in there and look at it, I want to make sure I know what the proper colors are. If you ever buy Bachmann logos, they must have got a deal on black wire, is all I can say, because you go in there and everything's black. Luckily, there's labels on the PC board, so you can kind of tell headlight, taillight, motor, and all that stuff. There's some other ones. These things are like the head of a pin for an LED, and they come pre-wired, because you can make yourself nuts wiring these things. But people say, well, how do you solder to a surface mount device? You can also use through hole, but I just don't. I'm kind of a surface guy. You stick them on something like this, which is called Blue Stick. This is, if you guys at N Scale, Deluxe Innovations used to make a sticky substance that would stick your containers together, and it was nothing more than this Blue Stick at about 10 times the price. It's good stuff. You can stick stuff in there. You can solder to it. Works real well. I got this on Amazon, maybe $4 or something for this, made by DAP. You may be able to find this in some of the hardware stores. How am I doing on time?
I'm muted. Sorry about that.
Oh.
Maybe another minute, and then we'll move on to Don and his.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. When I buy the resistors the LEDs on eBay, they usually come with a couple of sets of through-hole resistors, which are definitely much easier to solder to a wire leg, but they take up more space. They're a little bit unwieldy. These came with a 470 ohm, and I believe they came also with 100 ohm. Yeah, 100 ohm. So it's just kind of your preference on doing these. Many of the companies that sell to the model railroaders, engineering, and some of the other guys will be more than happy to sell you LEDs with resistors already on. Being kind of a cheap bastard, I like to do it myself, because I don't want to, I get 100 LEDs with resistors for like $5 versus paying, $5 for 2 with a resistor soldered on it. So any quick questions? Well, there you go.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pete. Okay. I'm going to move to our feature clinic called Keep 'em Rollin' by Don Fowler, our own MMR here in San Diego. Hi, Don.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Good. Are you ready?
I think so.
All right. It's all yours.
Okay. There we go. Now we're ready. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. This clinic is about keeping the rolling stock on the track. When you think about all the physical forces and dynamics involved in keeping rolling stock running smoothly without uncoupling or derailments, it's a miracle that we can run the train around a loop without incident. There's so many things that can go wrong, whether it's the foundation or the track or the wheels or weight. There's so many different issues, and nobody likes a derailment, and invariably they happen when you have a guest over or an op session, and you can run great all day long, and then when somebody comes in, the gremlins take over. But, in all my years of model railroading, I can only think of one guy who actually likes derailments.
Stop by to talk to you about. They're going to crash. You think so, huh? Beautiful. Beautiful. You meant to blow them up? Of course. Why else would a grown man play with trains? You want to blow the other bridge? Oh, some other time.
I couldn't resist. Well, of course, derailments are bad. We don't like them. You know, we share with the prototype in modeling that you have to have a solid foundation and roadbed, well-laid track, reasonable grades and super elevation, efficient electrical operation, dependable smooth motive power, and of course, well-maintained rolling stock. And it's whether you're modeling 1-to-1 or 1-to-220, it's all the same. You've got to have all that or you're going to get frustrated pretty quickly. These things all are a must to ensure good operation. We're going to talk a little bit about tuning up our rolling stock because some rolling stock are better than others. And so I'm going to show you some tricks that can help you if it's not working quite like it should. So rolling stock. You get what you pay for. If you want to take it out of the box and set it on the track and have it run perfect, you're going to need to pay more for the product. The paint, lettering, and details will also be of higher quality. But that doesn't mean you can't pick up great deals with lower price models or bargains at the swap meet. It just means you're going to have to invest some work into those bargains to ensure they operate trouble-free. So we're going to address a couple issues today. We're going to talk about weight, couplers, wheels, trucks, bolsters, and consisting. I'm going to start off by talking about weight. This is probably one of the easier issues to deal with thanks to our NMRA standards and recommendations. On the website, you can find the recommended weight for cars by scale and length. What you choose to weigh the car with and how you mount it is up to you. There are many commercial weights available that include self-adhesive quarter-ounce quantities, soft moldable types. I've also seen people use pennies, auto tire weights, BBs. It really kind of depends on what you want to spend and what kind of car you're dealing with. Flat cars are a little challenging, but with the right load or turning it over and adding some weight under the frame, that can help. Too little weight, the car is going to derail very easily. Too much weight, you won't be able to pull very many. So follow those NMRA recommendations and invest in a postal scale. On my previous layout, I built a working scale track where I put in a scale on the track and I ran my cars right onto the scale to evaluate them, make sure they were weighing properly. Let's move on to couplers. Well, one other thing about weight, you can buy weight in a lot of places. Hobby stores, craft stores, Home Depot, fishing stores. They sell weights for fishing and all different kinds. So There's a lot of options. Couplers. In the beginning, there were horn and hook couplers for HO and Rapido style for N. They worked fairly well, but they didn't look very prototypical. And we've come a long way since then, thanks to two brothers in Oregon who started KD and Microtrains. They changed our modeling world with their design of the knuckle coupler in multiple scales and styles. Other manufacturers have since developed other good realistic knuckle couplers, but my experience has always been with KD and Microtrains. And they work good for me. While most company coupler products work well with each other, I think that sticking with one consistent brand is probably best. Couplers can be found in many variations to accommodate just about any kind of car. Some modelers have experimented with using smaller scale couplers on their equipment with mixed results. If you have subtle variations in your track elevation, smaller coupler faces can lead to more unwanted uncoupling. I've seen people in HO use N-scale couplers because they look more accurate scale-wise, and I've seen N-scale people use Z-scale couplers. And I've also seen quite a bit of frustration with that. So I guess to each their own. As it pertains to switching, some prefer using magnets to uncouple their cars, while others like to use a pick or other similar advice to manually disconnect cars. It's whatever you like. Couplers should be uniform height to ensure best coupling and uncoupling consistency. Several manufacturers and NMRA make coupler height gauges to ensure conformity. Shims and spacers can be fashioned or purchased to adjust height to proper dimensions. Trip pins must be set above rail height or they will catch and derail a car when they encounter switches or grade crossings. There's always a big debate about body mount versus truck mounted couplers. Most ready-to-run cars come with truck-mounted couplers. It isn't hard to body mount couplers, but it takes a little time and ingenuity. There's many articles and YouTube videos available to assist you with that. Two main advantages of body mounted couplers is that it follows prototype practice and prevents derailments when backing. And people debate it to this day about which is best. I body mounted all of my couplers on my long cars, like 89-foot auto racks and flat cars. If you're going to back those kind of cars, I found that body mounts are a lot better and save you a lot of frustration. And this kind of illustrates some of the forces that are used in comparison with body mount versus truck mounted couplers. We'll move on to wheels. On the prototype, cameras have been mounted under car frames to study flange wheel behavior while in motion. Studies show that the faster a train goes and the rougher the track, the more likely a derailment will occur. Other factors include the weight of the car, loaded versus unloaded, and the condition or gauge of the rail. When the wheels shift from side to side, this is called hunting for the path of least resistance. I'm going to show you a real quick video on that.
Truck hunting is a lateral instability in which the truck shifts side to side and creates excessive wear to the truck components, the car body, and potentially to the commodity. Roller side bearings do not contact the car body and provide no resistance once a truck begins to hunt. Minor constant contact side bearings apply a vertical force between the car body and the truck, creating frictional turning resistance, which controls truck hunting.
All right, back on the, oops, went to the wrong spot, sorry. Okay. Contemporary wheels on prototype cars can vary in diameter depending on the type of car and the weight being carried. Here are some examples. Auto racks have 28-inch wheels for a lower center of gravity. Most 70-ton freight cars have 33-inch wheels like box cars. Most 100-ton freight cars have 36-inch wheels like coal hoppers. Articulated double stack cars have 33-inch wheels on the ends and 38-inch wheels where the cars are articulated due to the greater weight support needed. And I found that out the hard way about articulated double stacks. I bought a used set at a swap meet, and someone had played with the wheels, and I didn't know it. So when I put it on the track, it kept uncoupling. So I got looking real close at the wheels, and they interspaced the wheels in the wrong way. And I found that by moving the wheels into the proper locations, I didn't have any more derailments. So it does matter. A lot of companies make wheels. One of my favorites is Fox Valley. They're kind of hard to find sometimes, but you can get them in different wheel sizes and different axle lengths for different types of trucks. It shows you a little bit of the forces and how the wheels interface with the rail. And as you saw from the video, if you don't have a good fitting flange to rail ratio, you're going to have problems. Of course, NMRA makes a great scale for checking flange. And that has other uses too. And then another big debate is plastic versus metal wheels. HO guys for a long time have sworn by metal wheels. In N scale, we always went with the plastic microtrain wheels. But recent studies have shown that the metal ones are truly better. They don't deposit the residue on the rail like the plastic ones do. Molded plastic wheels and axles are cheaper and never fall out of gauge. It's also believed that over time, this plastic deteriorates and transfers residue to and from the rails, affecting electrical conductivity. Solvents used to clean rails can also contribute to breakdown of plastic wheel set. Metal wheels are more expensive, less likely to transfer residue to and from the rail, but can fall out of gauge due to the necessary plastic insulator on one wheel. You may also select metal wheel sets with varying axle lengths to accommodate a variety of manufacturers' trucks. And that takes us to trucks. Truck designs evolved over time. Depending on your modeling time frame, you should attempt to reflect your era. Here are some more basic truck types. The arch bar was like from 1900 to 1939, early steam. Bettendorf, AAR type, 1930 to 1950, steam diesel transition. Roller bearing, Barber, 1950s to the current, and they've got second and third generation of those. So if you want to be accurate, you want to pick the right kind of truck for the era of the car you're running. I also wanted to talk for a minute about bolsters because I have required some cars that have required some modification. If you change out trucks, sometimes the retaining pin or screw doesn't fit properly, and you should ensure the bolster is flush and level without a burr or molding flash. Sometimes a bolster must be filed or a washer must be added to adjust coupler height. The bolster doesn't sit flush on the truck, the car will wobble. Some suggest the truck bolster on one end of the car should be snug while the other end should be loose. I personally haven't found that to be an issue one way or the other. This is a reamer that you can purchase. Sometimes when you buy a car, the journal inside the truck is not clean, and this reamer will clean the plastic out and allow the axle, the pointed axle on the end there to run a lot smoother. And there we are looking at bolsters. Car placement. Like the prototype, when a car is placed on, where a car is placed in train makes a difference, especially on a long train. Whenever possible, real railroads place their empty or light cars at the end of the train consist with the heavier cars up front. This practice also benefits our modeling dynamics as well. If you don't believe me, put your light cars on the front end with heavy cars on the back, then run that train through a tight curve. This is what you'll get. This is called string lining or a bowstring. And that's when the cars are pulled because the weight is at the back of the train pulling the light cars into the curve. It happens, and you've probably seen it or experienced it. Even without a derailment, a train properly configured will run more smoothly and efficiently. Test tracks. Test tracks are great because you can test your equipment and really take a close look at it before you get it running on the layout, or if you're in a club, before you take it somewhere else to run it. It should include several things like a straight track, a re-railer, a crossover, a coupler gauge, an uncoupler magnet, and a postal scale to measure the weight of the car. It could also be used as a programming track if you chose. But if your car can pass all the tests on the bench, it should be good to go on the layout. And there's the things I was just talking about. Troubleshooting. If you get frustrated with the car, you don't have to throw it in the fire. There's a couple things you can do before you give up on it. It could be you've worked through your whole fleet of cars and you're still having derailments. Invest in some magnification and portable light. You'll be amazed at what you can miss with normal eyesight and mediocre lighting. Here's some ideas to remedy your situation. If the same car derails in many locations, recheck the weight, coupler gauge, wheels, trucks, and bolsters. If that car is a problem all over the layout, it's the car, not the layout. Conversely, if various cars derail at the same location, it's your track. You've got a bad spot. Check your rail gauge, joints, level, rail surface, points, and clearances. And if you just can't figure out what to do, this is where the NMRA is your friend. There are many in the organization who've already dealt with what you're currently struggling with. Make a call and get some free expert help. A fresh set of eyes and a new perspective can definitely help you. You don't have to be frustrated because we've all been there. So don't be hesitating to reach out. That pretty much concludes the presentation I have. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Hi, Don. I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Hey, on your test track, did you say you had a, what were all the points on your test track?
There you go.
Okay, you said a crossover? Where's that on your test track?
It's recommended on test track. Crossover is where two switches on two tracks, where you cross over between two tracks. Takes two turnouts to do it.
Oh, so you're saying, so when you have a test track with your coupler gauge height at the end, you recommend a double line test track? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, at least a little bit, so you can run a car over a crossover. Because especially with longer cars, if there are going to be problems, that's where they're going to hang up.
Oh, so you mean if you have a test track, you lay track like absolutely perfectly so that you can tell if it's the car and not the, and it can't be the track, because the track is so perfect that you know for sure it's the car that's having a problem. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, I never heard. Okay, nice. And then your postal scale, is that on your test track, or
you can put it on the test track or on the bench, either one. I built mine into my test track.
you did?
Yep.
Okay, I never heard of that. Okay, that's cool. Okay, I have to.
That's probably a subject for another clinic.
Okay, yeah, I like the fact that. Yeah, I never thought of doing a double line test track with some turnouts on there. I love that idea.
You don't have to, but it's just a good suggestion.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else?
Hey, this is Rudy Blau. I noticed you talking about wobbling cars. What I do is take a tiny little coil spring and about 2 coils and mount that between the bolster and the head of the mounting screw, and then tighten the screw back in, not too tight, so that the truck is still turning properly. And you need to do that only on one of the trucks. You don't need to do it on both sides of the car, and that takes the wobble out of the car.
That's a good thought.
That's my technique.
Very
I
good.
need tiny little coil though, and smaller than what you find in the ballpoint pen, but I'm
Yeah.
sure that most of you have a bin full of little things.
Sure. But like I said a few minutes ago, if you're really having problems with the car, I mean, reach out to somebody, because most of us have had to troubleshoot a problem car, and in a couple of minutes, we can usually figure out what's going on with it. So.
I have a question, Don.
Yep.
You used that little reamer to ream out the, the interior of the truck side frames.
The journal, yeah.
Does that actually work?
Yeah, it does.
Does. Okay. I've Micromark seems to be the only source of those things now. There was another company, maybe Reeboks, that was selling them for a while, but
you could probably do the same thing with a properly gauged X-Acto knife, but the smaller gauge you go, the tighter it gets.
Yeah.
But what you're trying to do is just get, if there's any flash or plastic in there, just to clean it out.
Okay.
Microscale does a really good job with theirs. I haven't had to do hardly any cleanup on theirs. They'll roll forever. And you can tell if you've got the right wheel set in the right truck, set it on the track and it just starts moving. And then, you've got it.
Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, Don, have you found a reamer for N scale?
I saw one a while back and I picked one up, but I haven't seen them for sale in a while. But you just kind of have to watch for them. HO is really all I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, I've used them on HO equipment before, and they're really great. It's amazing the difference.
Yeah,
I was hoping to find one for N scale, but you haven't seen one yet. Thank you.
Sure.
Don, you mentioned rolling the cars rolling as soon as you put them on the track. Our N scale club down at Balboa Park, part of our test track actually had a grade on it so that we could test how far the cars rolled when we got them new out of a box.
That's a great idea too. I know I've got a gravity hump yard on my layout, and some cars roll faster than others, and some roll a little too fast. So I've had to slow some down.
Yeah, put that spring on the on one of the axles.
Yep.
Hey, Don, there's a question. Are freight car trucks different from passenger car trucks?
Absolutely. Let me go back. They're different in design. On the prototype, they serve a different function. They've got more of a cushioning effect than freight car trucks. The other thing is, if you look, and bombardier trucks look very different from anything else. That's what you'll see like on a coaster train or a metro. They've got a very different type of truck on them. They've got exposed wheels actually on them. Whereas on traditional freight cars, the truck frame covers the center of the wheel. So they are different. They perform the same function, obviously, but even some of the old heavyweight cars, they're like a 3-axle truck. And that can have some issues if your screw is rubbing on that axle in the middle. So there are a couple things to be aware of with passenger trucks.
Well, yeah, I think with passenger, and this is my question concerning passenger cars, are a lot of those passenger trucks, is the coupler on the truck itself, or do passenger cars usually come with I'm sorry, is the coupler box on the passenger car truck, or is it on the frame of the passenger car? The coupler box.
You can find it both ways depending on what manufacturer you're purchasing from.
Okay, and is it better than for passenger cars that if the coupler's on the truck, to change it to the body? Is that like a standard?
If you buy a train and they're truck mounted and you're satisfied with the operation, I wouldn't modify them.
Oh, okay.
But if you're having trouble with them, then that's something you might want to consider, is body mounting your couplers. Typically backing through turnouts is where you'll find problems with truck mounted couplers.
Thank you.
Don, do the truck mounted couplers give you any advantage on tight curves?
Yes, I believe so. When you're rolling forward, that can be advantageous. On my layout, I run about a 20-inch minimum radius in the N scale. but not everybody has that luxury. Some are all the way down to 9 3/4 inch radiuses. So again, experimenting with your layout before you do modifications is a good idea. If you're running truck mounted and they're running through those tight curves good, again, I'd be hesitant to change that. But you know, if you like to tinker and play, that's part of the fun of the hobby.
Hey, Don.
Yeah.
This is Frank Baker.
Hi, Frank.
When you're weighing your cars, where do you put the notation? On a car or on a form?
Well, honestly, once the car meets spec, I don't have to record it. I just have to keep track of the cars that haven't been properly weighted.
Yeah.
So I don't have to keep a record of what the car weights are. If you're going to do a series of cars, you might want to keep a record, like if you're doing a unit train and you're picking them up in increments, a few at a time, to help you remember the car weight. That might be a good idea, is to have some record keeping on an index card or something.
Frank and others, what I do is I have a car card for every car because I do ops. And on the back of the car card, it's got notes for that particular car, whether it's got metal wheels, plastic wheels, what kind of trucks, couplers, you know it, you name it. So it's on the back of the car card for the car. And that way I can keep an individual record for each car.
I'll tell you what I did, Frank, on my postal scale is I printed out the scale rule, and then I printed out the recommended weight for the length of the car.
Sure.
And so I'd roll the car onto the scale track, and if it was a 40-foot car, I knew it should weigh this much just looking at the scale, and that's how I could verify if it was right or not.
So,
the only other,
you mentioned wheel sets, metal wheel sets.
Yeah.
Where do you place Katie in the wheel set?
Katie makes metal wheel sets now. I've used them, and they're okay. I put them probably in the mid range. I really been really happy with the Fox Valley wheel sets.
Yeah,
I like them best, but they're hard to come by sometimes.
Sure. Yeah, because I have all Intermountain wheel sets. I had Katie's for the longest time, but I found that they, because of the metal that they make them from, they're not machined, they're cast, that you're always getting some voltage or a pitting right around on a switch someplace.
I found the same thing.
I got rid of them all.
Yeah, I try to stick with the better wheels. I know you pay a little more, and they're
worth every bit.
You get what you pay for.
Yes. Yeah.
I found the same thing with the Atlas metal wheel sets, about the same.
Hey, Don, on your Fox Valley, is that for N scale, or do you think they're good for HO2? Is that or
I can't speak from personal experience, but what my friends have told me is they like them in HO2.
Oh, okay.
so on the scale, I usually use grams instead of ounces. And most of your weights will have both marked on them. So
yeah,
a little more accuracy with the grams.
Yep, that's true. It's funny, all these little things you can do to a car that can just really enhance the performance. Like I said, if you pay a lot of money for a car, I think you should be able to take it out of the box and put it on the track, and it should do what it's supposed to do. But if you're getting something at a swap meet, or you got some older equipment you want to tune up, that's kind of what this was designed for, to kind of help you look at some of those things that you can do to spruce them up and make them run good.
You mean those old Athearns don't count?
Yeah. That doesn't mean they can't run good, though.
They run fine, Don.
You just got to play with them a little bit. Sometimes.
I have a bunch, and they run fine.
I've got some road railers that still give me fits. The single axle truck on either end with a trailer, so it's a very thin frame.
Sure.
Some of them I still have a little bit of wobble in them. It drives me nuts. But that's the fun of the hobby, is tinkering and playing. And
that's right.
And when you get it right, say, "Huh, mine don't wobble. How about yours?"
And ask questions of everybody.
Yeah.
Don, I have about 20 more questions, but maybe next time.
That's fine. You can send me an email if you want to. The great thing is, though, everybody has worked through this in one way or another. And if you're struggling with a certain type of car or a problem, just reach out to one of us. We're always happy to help. It's kind of fun. It's kind of being a detective and figuring out what the problem is and then fixing it.
It was really, really an informative clinic, Don. I really appreciated it.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, Trudy. For some, maybe it's just a refresher on the basics, but we forget things sometimes. You know, we've got so many things on our mind right now, and it's kind of good to review and think about things when you're, instead of setting that car aside and saying, that thing doesn't run good, you know. You paid for it, make it work.
Yeah.
Don, I want to say thanks for doing this. I will be getting my NMRA gauge out and checking a loco immediately after this is over.
Yeah, I know we all have some bad order stuff that's sitting on a shelf somewhere. And, you know, if you got the time and the inclination, it's kind of fun to fix it.
And it sure beats the day job.
Yes. And also it'll cut down on your bad language. You know, you have those derailments and all those bad words pop out. Yeah, that'll go away.
Thank you so much, Don. Is there any last minute comments or discussion or questions?
No, thanks, Don.
Cars? Yes, thank you very much. Very enjoyable. Okay, so I guess we're wrapping ourselves up here for October. Let me look at my notes here. So thank you all who agreed to participate. Really, really appreciate that. So thank you to John and Chris and Rudy and Kevin and Don and Pete. Did I miss anybody? Thank you, Mike, for helping me with the Zoom call. And
hey, Ryan.
Yeah.
Are you going to promote your joining the big leagues on Wednesday night? Come on,
Thursday.
what we're going to do. What you're going to do.
Thursday night. Yes.
Thursday night. Excuse me.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Blowing my cover. The only problem with Thursday night is I still have to prepare it. What Steve's referring to is the Mile Railroad Museum is having a speaker series, and I'm going to be speaking on Thursday. So I'm going to do a layout tour kind of presentation, and I'm realizing how much I don't have done in my layout, and gosh, I really agreed to do this. But what I'm looking at is maybe taking a little bit of approach from John today, because I do have lots of pictures, and it's not done, but I have lots of pictures of things that as they've been coming along. So it'll be interesting if I can get my act together by Thursday. So you tell me, Steve, how well I do later. All right, what else have we got here? Oh, I appreciate the show and tell again, that people volunteered for that, and it's always fun to have lots of people share their projects, and it's just doesn't have to be involved, just show something cool you're working on. And I don't know, is there anything else anybody else has that I should be saying before we leave? We're going to do an event in November that is under planning right now. So we hope to be doing some with the museum, but I don't know any of the details yet on that one. So, and so is there anything else? Anyone else that knows what I'm forgetting?
Will there be dinner at the November one?
If you bring it, yeah, it's going to be virtual, so you have to bring your own dinner. Yeah.
And either way, that'll be the 14th, right?
14th, second Saturday, always second Saturday.
1 o'clock.
Yeah, 1 o'clock. So in November. So thank you for coming and supporting us and enjoying. So at this point, I'm going to end our streaming, and you guys can